Let me start. Thanks so much for including my paper. My name is Chao Ying. I'm a finance PhD student from Minnesota, and I'm on the job market this year. Today, I will present the pre-FOMC announcement drift and private information, Kaya Miss Microfinance. Any comments are highly welcome. The Federal Open Market Committee meetings have gathered a lot of attention since they announced the monetary policy for economic developments. For example, recently on March 15, Fed cut interest rate to near zero to ease the economic effects of the pandemic. Asset markets respond very strongly after that. Given the huge attention to FOMC announcements, a natural question to ask is, what is average excess return around these events? Luca and Munch document the famous pre-announcement drift, that a large excess return is realized in this 24-hour window before FOMC announcements. This figure replicates their results, where the x-axis is the time around announcements, and the y-axis is the cumulative return on the S&P 500 index. Here is the day before announcement. Here is the day with announcement. Most of the announcements happen at 2 p.m. or 2:15 p.m. To make sure the pre-announcement drift does not contain any announcement information, I follow Luca and Munch and calculate the pre-announcement drift until 2 p.m. Just before announcement, the average excess return is about 40 basis points for each announcement. While after announcement, the return is on average flat. FOMC announcement hold 8 times a year, which implies that 70% of the annual equity premium is realized on this 24-hour window before announcement. The large magnitude of the pre-announcement drift makes it essential for asset pricing literature to understand it. However, it provides a big challenge to current asset pricing theories, which predict that the premium should be earned at announcement when the uncertainty is resolved from this public news, rather than ahead of the announcement. Therefore, understanding this important fact can potentially provide new insights into current asset pricing literature. This paper proposes and tests the private information explanation for the time series pre-announcement drift through risk reduction. Here are the two potential sources of private information that has been widely discussed in the literature before announcement. First, Wilson-Jacobs and her co-authors provide a history of leaked discussions in FOMC documents. They conclude that Fed policymakers would leak information to drive market expectations. The leakage may also happen accidentally, which has been well studied in the literature of takeovers. Second, given the huge market attention to FOMC announcement, the institutional investors also have strong motivations to collect data related to these events. In my paper, I first provide empirical support that indicates the presence of private information in the financial markets. First, Hu, Pan, Wang, and Zhu document that the market uncertainty, which is measured by VIX index, starts to increase 3 days before announcement. More importantly, they find that the market uncertainty reduces significantly in the 24-hour window before announcement, which happens at the same time window as the pre-announcement drift. FOMC members are not allowed to discuss the monetary policy in the week before FOMC meetings, which is called blackout period. Therefore, the significant market uncertainty reduction indicates the potential presence of private information before announcements. To provide more empirical support, for each announcement, I can calculate the total uncertainty reduction in the 24-hour window. And then I sort the announcements into tertials. The high group contains the days that the uncertainty decreases the most before announcement. After that, I can plot the cumulative return for the high group. As you can see, now the pre-announcement drift is even stronger, that you can earn on average 100 basis points for each announcement when there's huge uncertainty reduction before announcement. The low group contains the days that the uncertainty decreases the least or even increases before announcement. And the cumulative return before announcement is on average flat. There's no pre-announcement drift. It implies that when there's no private information before announcement, the market uncertainty will not decrease, and there's no pre-announcement drift. Therefore, the second fact also supports the private information explanation for the positive pre-announcement drift. Next, I want to measure the informed trading in the 24-hour window. We should only expect the informed trading when there's uncertainty reduction in this 24-hour window. The informed trading is not directly observable in the data, so I follow the literature to measure the informed trading by order imbalance. The order imbalance is the difference between aggregate buyer and seller initiated trading volume divided by the aggregate trading volume.
Chao, can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
The underlying security is the E-mini, right?
Yeah, I will talk about it in 1 second. It's here.
Okay.
Yeah. So here I applied the tick rule to identify the sign of the transaction. And the transaction is buyer initiated if the transaction price is higher than the last different price. And the transaction is seller initiated if the price is lower than the last different price. And as mentioned by Neil, here I use the underlying security I use is the E-mini S&P 500 futures, which is traded almost 24 hours. And it allows me to calculate the aggregate order imbalance in the 24-hour window before announcement for each FOMC announcements. These two figures plot the aggregate order imbalance in the 24-hour window for each FOMC announcement during the past 30 years. And here I classify the announcements by an indicator function UR. UR is 1 if there is uncertainty reduction before announcement and the cumulative return is positive. UR is -1 if the cumulative return is negative before announcement. And when there's no uncertainty reduction in this 24-hour window, UI is 0. As you can see from the figures, when there is uncertainty reduction, most of the order imbalances are in the same direction of the realized return, and the magnitude is pretty large. While when there's no uncertainty reduction before announcement, the order imbalance is pretty small and largely random. Therefore, from this figure, the informed trading measured by the order imbalance supports that only when there is uncertainty reduction, there is informed trading. In addition, I find that the average order imbalance when there is uncertainty reduction is significantly positive. This is consistent with the positive pre-announcement drift, that the insider will on average trade positively to chase that premium. Therefore, so far, all these 3 empirical facts support the private information explanation for the positive pre-announcement drift. Given these empirical facts, I would like to jointly account for the time series pre-announcement drift, as well as informed trading in the presence of private information. Basically, I integrate chaos model into a standard consumption-based asset pricing framework. There are 3 groups of agents in this economy: the insider, liquidity traders, and competitive market makers. Compared to the standard chaos model, the main difference is that instead of being risk neutral, the market makers are compensated for the risk of asset fundamentals. They set the price equals marginal utility weighted asset payoffs, where the SDF is determined from this consumption-based asset pricing framework. Here is the main intuition of the paper. Let me start from the chaos model so that you can see the differences. The insider knows the private information before announcement and trades to maximize her profit. Understanding her trading will affect the stock price. The market makers can only observe the aggregate order flow from both the insider and the liquidity traders. In the chaos model, when the market makers are risk neutral, they will update their belief of the asset value, which will resolve their uncertainty before announcement. However, there's no additional price impact from this uncertainty resolution when the market makers are risk neutral in chaos model. In other words, the price will go up if it's good news, and the price will go down if it is bad news. And on average, there's no pre-announcement drift. Well, in my model, the market makers are compensated for the risk of asset fundamentals. Therefore, after they observe this aggregate order flow, they will update their belief of the asset value and the SDF at the same time, which will resolve the uncertainty before announcements. In the meantime, the equity premium will be realized from this uncertainty resolution, since now the market makers are compensated for this risk. This leads to the upward drift in prices on average before announcement. In addition, the market makers would anticipate on average positive trading flow from the insider to chase this premium. And the insider has to consider the additional price impact from this uncertainty resolution when she trades. This feedback effect is unique in my model, which generates totally different equilibrium implications compared to Kyle model. My paper mainly makes 4 contributions. First, empirically, I document that there is informed trading in the 24-hour window before announcement when the uncertainty decreases. Second, my paper provides a micro foundation of how the private information diffusion drives the positive pre-announcement drift. And the private information is released endogenously through the insider trading in a standard microstructure framework. We know that when there is private information, the price changes. However, it doesn't imply that the average excess return before announcement will be positive. As I said in the Kyle model, the average return before announcement is literally 0, since for the price it will go up if it is good news, and the price goes down if it is bad news. And on average, there's no pre-announcement drift. Super 1991 is the only attempt in the literature that tries to relax the risk-neutral market makers' assumption. And he studies the one-period Kyle model with CRA preference market makers. However, even under his framework, there's no pre-announcement drift, since the news is not priced under CRA preference. Therefore, the third contribution of my paper is that I demonstrate there is a strictly positive pre-announcement drift if and only if the market makers are compensated for the risk in asset fundamentals. The preference of the market makers can be very general as long as the announcement SDF is countercyclical, which is one of the most essential elements in this asset pricing literature. And under the assumption that consumption does not respond to announcements in this short-term interval, I can overcome the challenge that mentioned by Silber. Kyle model cannot be readily extended to a dynamic framework with risk-averse market makers. In the end, my paper can quantitatively account for the time series pre-announcement drift, as well as informed trading in the presence of private information. And the equilibrium is captured in closed form, which generates clear mapping from the model to data. Let me skip the literature review and talk about the benchmark setup. So I started an infinite horizon endowment economy, where the agents in this economy cannot observe the underlying growth rate, and the announcements come every 2 days, which will reveal more information of the underlying growth rate. And then for the standard asset pricing theory, they would predict that the premium should be earned after announcement when the uncertainty is resolved from this public news, rather than ahead of the announcements. So to account for the pre-announcement drift, I introduced the market microstructure into this framework. And compared to the Kyle model, the main difference is that the market makers set price equals marginal utility weighted asset payouts. And the SDF is determined from this consumption-based asset pricing framework. This figure summarizes all the essential elements in my model. Next, let me go into the details. I will start from the consumption-based asset pricing framework with the learning. there is a persistent component MT in the aggregate endowment process. MT is the growth rate, which follows the standard L1 process. The agents in this economy cannot observe the growth rate MT, but they can update their belief of MT through this aggregate endowment dynamics. The posterior belief of MT is summarized by the first two moments, where MT head is the posterior mean and QT is the posterior variance. The announcement comes from every T days, which will reveal more information of the growth rate. This is consistent with the information effect of these announcements in the literature. During today's presentation, I assume that the agents have the standard recursive preference, but it can be easily extended to other preferences that satisfy and fancy, such as robust control and ambiguity aversion. Under the assumption that consumption does not respond to announcements in this short time interval, I can derive the closed form announcement SDF. And here, the announcement SDF is countercyclical if and only if gamma A is positive. And under recursive preference, it is equivalent to say that when the agent prefers early resolution of uncertainty, the announcement SDF is countercyclical. The main takeaway from this consumption-based asset pricing framework is that it provides a countercyclical announcement SDF for the market makers. And for the market makers, as in the KL model, they can only observe the aggregate outflow from both the insider and the liquidity traders. In the KL model, when the market makers are risk neutral, they set price equals expected asset payoff upon announcement. Well, in my model, when the market makers are compensated for the risk, they set price equals marginal utility weighted asset payoff upon announcement. So now after they observe the aggregate outflow, they need to update the expected discounted value and the expected SDF at the same time. This is the main difference compared to the KL model, that they will only update their belief of the asset payoff before announcement. The insider knows the signal earlier, therefore she knows the underlying growth rate earlier. In other words, there's no aggregate uncertainty to the insider before announcement. And she trades smoothly to maximize her terminal profits, which is the price difference times the number of shares traded before announcements. And equilibrium is pretty standard. It's the price process and the trading strategy that satisfies the market maker's break-even condition while maximizing the insider's profit. Okay, next I'm going to talk about the equilibrium results. So first, I assume that the asset value follows log normal distribution, and more specifically, beta is positive, so that the asset value increases in the underlying growth rate. In the standard KL model, when the market makers are risk neutral, the equilibrium price is a linear function of the aggregate outflow. And here, lambda is a famous chaos lambda that captures the price impact. Well, in my model, when the market makers are compensated for the risk, the equilibrium price is a function of YT head instead of the aggregate outflow YT. And I will define YT head pretty soon. In addition to that, there is another term that appears in the equilibrium price dynamics. This is because the active premium realized when there is uncertainty resolution before announcement. Second, the market makers would anticipate on average positive trading flow from the insider to chase this premium. Therefore, there is also additional term that appears in the insider's trading strategy compared to the KL model. In the KL model, the market makers are risk neutral, so there's no additional price impact from this uncertainty resolution. And the market makers would anticipate zero order flow from this insider. And it implies that the aggregate order flow is a Brownian motion under market makers information set in the KL model. However, in my model, I need to define the adjusted order flow YT head that take away the part that's within market makers' expectation, so that the adjusted order flow is a Brownian motion under market makers' information set, and it becomes the new state variable of my equilibrium. Here are the equilibrium implications. I still want to compare the benchmark where the market makers are compensated for the risk to the Chao model. First, the equilibrium price in my model is a sub-martingale, which is expected to increase over time. This is because the equity premium will be realized from this uncertainty resolution before announcement. And the slope of the pre-announcement drift is determined by the standard equation, which is the negative covariance of the SDF and the asset value. And it is positive when in the benchmark. Well, in the Chao model, the equilibrium price is a martingale, which implies that the pre-announcement drift is 0 on average. Therefore, there is only a positive pre-announcement drift if and only if the market makers are compensated for the risk in asset fundamentals. Second, the market makers would expect on average positive trading flow from this insider to chase this premium. And the feedback effect determines that in the equilibrium, the expected insider's order rate is defined by the slope of the pre-announcement drift divided by the chaos lambda, where in the Chao model it is 0. And third, the price impact in my model is also a sub-martingale. And here is the intuition. When the market makers are compensated for the risk, they will benefit from this uncertainty resolution. Therefore, they have the incentives to set the price impact on average increase over time, such that the insider will trade earlier and release the information earlier. First, I find that the equilibrium in the benchmark will converge to the standard Chao model when the market makers converge to be risk neutral. This result established the link between my paper and the whole literature. So given all these equilibrium implications, my paper provides a micro foundation of how private information diffusions drives the positive pre-announcement drift. Next, I'm going to show you some quantitative implications from these two models. The first figure plots how uncertainty changes before announcement. Here, NT is the time that announcement happened, and NT minus 1 is the 24 hours before announcement. As you can see from this figure, we cannot distinguish between these two models from the uncertainty reduction pattern. And here is the realized pre-announcement drift that I calculate from these simulations. As you can see, only when the market makers are compensated for the risk, there is a positive pre-announcement drift. And I can match the level of the pre-announcement drift pretty well. Well, however, in the Chao model, there's no pre-announcement drift, and the average excess return upon announcement is 0. I also plot the distribution of the order imbalances in the model. In the benchmark, when the market makers are compensated for the risk, the average order imbalance will be significantly positive, since now the insider will trade positively to chase this premium. However, in the Chao model, when the market makers are risk neutral, there's no pre-announcement drift. Therefore, the insider's trading strategy will be not significantly different from 0. So to account for the positive order imbalances before announcement, it is still necessary to include the risk-compensated market makers in the model.
So Chao, let me interrupt you and tell you it would be good if you could finish up in about 5 minutes.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Neil. So so far the benchmark model, I can account for the level of the pre-announcement drift and the uncertainty reduction, as well as the from the trading. However, from the Chao model, the slope is almost linear. Therefore, to fully account for the whole time series of the pre-announcement drift, I introduced the full model. As I showed you at the beginning, the uncertainty doesn't always decrease before announcement. So I generalized the benchmark such that the insider may not be better informed for some announcement. And the market makers have to assess whether the insider has private information or not for each announcement. And the equilibrium is captured by the following 4 elements: the insider's trading strategy when she is informed, the insider's trading strategy when she is not informed, the equilibrium price, as well as the probability estimation of how likely the insider is informed. And I solved the equilibrium by a nonlinear filtering, and the dynamics of the probability estimation before announcements leads to the nonlinear and stochastic equilibrium price before announcements. Here are the model implications upon announcements. When the insider is better informed, the market makers will figure it out just before announcement. So the probability estimation upon announcement is 1. And the equilibrium price will convert to the true asset value almost surely, since all the informations have been combined into the equilibrium price dynamics. It implies that on average, there's uncertainty reduction before announcement, and the average excess return before announcement is positive. The insider will on average trade positively to chase this premium. Well, when the insider is not better informed, the market makers will also figure it out just before announcement, so that the probability estimation before announcement is 0. And the equilibrium price will convert to the initial price almost surely, since now the insider doesn't have better information than what the market makers have at the beginning. And it implies that on average, there's no uncertainty reduction upon announcement. There's no positive shift before announcement, and also the insider will on average trade 0. So there is the positive pre-announcement drift, and the positive average order imbalances only exists if the uncertainty decreases before announcement, which is fully consistent with the empirical fact that I document at the beginning. So here is the quantitative implications of the paper. Let me skip the calibration and show you that here, to fully capture the 24-hour equilibrium price dynamics, I use the E-mini S&P 500 futures to calculate the 24-hour pre-announcement drift. However, for the VIX index, it's only available in the regular trading hours until recent years. Therefore, there's no overnight data available. And as you can see from the figures, my model can match both the time series pre-announcement drift as well as the time series uncertainty reduction pretty well. And here are also the order imbalances in the model. I want to highlight that only when the insider is informed, there is a positive pre-announcement drift, and it is associated with a positive insider's trading to chase this premium. And when the insider is not informed, on average, the order imbalance is not significantly different from 0, since now there's no pre-announcement drift. After I explain the time series of the pre-announcement drift, uncertainty reduction, and informed trading, I also conduct another 5 empirical tests, and all of them are consistent with the model's predictions. I don't think I have time to go to the details, so let me conclude. In this paper, I integrate chaos model into a standard asset pricing framework to account for the time series pre-announcement drift, as well as informed trading in the presence of private information. I find that risk compensation on market makers is necessary and sufficient to account for the positive pre-announcement drift. The literature also documents other pre-events drift, and they treat that as the empirical evidence of the private information. However, they don't have the theory support, since if they take the chaos model, the average excess return before announcement will be 0. Therefore, my paper also provides a general theoretical framework for other pre-event drifts. And the totally different equilibrium implications compared to the standard chaos model provide new insights into how asymmetric information affects asset prices, volatility, volume, and market liquidity. I leave these interesting directions for future study. That's all. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. There are lots of questions. I didn't ask them during your talk because I thought you were running a little bit behind schedule, and I didn't want to make you run further behind schedule. But anyway, actually, I'll read the questions in the chat. But other people should feel free to unmute themselves and use their microphones to ask questions if you want. Okay, so the one from Francois Kokoma. In the dynamic Kyle-Back model, the insider is creating a Brownian bridge to the true value. So when you say there's no drift in the benchmark model, you mean that the true value is drawn from a zero mean distribution. Is that correct?
The short answer, yes, it is correct. But actually, even the mean is not zero. That will be within the market maker's expectation. So how I say that? So so for example, if you draw the value from a mean that is different from zero, that part it will be it is within the market maker's expectation. So the initial price will contain that part. Therefore, even you assume that the mean is different from zero, there is still, on average, no pre-announcement drift in this Kyle-Back models.
Okay, so there's a question from SN owner, which someone else already may have answered it in the chat, but I'll ask and I'll read it to you and see if it give you a chance to respond. So the question is, or it's really a comment that you can respond to. I think your model might fit a world where the market makers are specialists, but E-mini futures don't have specialists and everyone sees the total order flow in the market. Since trading in the order book is anonymous, it's hard to imagine how market makers somehow realize they are trading with insiders and use order flow to update their beliefs. So that's really a statement rather than, or a comment rather than a question, but I'll let you respond to it.
So yeah, I see your concern, but here is actually as in the Kyle model, the market makers, they cannot distinguish it from the insider or it from the liquidity traders. They can only observe the aggregate order flow. But if they see the persistent buyer, so as long as they think there is the insider for this announcement, then they will update their belief. It is not like they can know, okay, for this trading, it comes from the insider. No, that's not the case. It's that they can only observe the aggregate order flow as everyone else, and they will infer how much of this aggregate order flow from this insider. Yeah.
Okay. So from Dimitri, there's a question about fixed income instruments. I saw on your next to last slide that you have something to say, but you didn't say. But I think the audience is interested in this. So the questions are, what are the implications of your model for the treasury bond market? Shouldn't investors informed about FOMC announcements first trade there before the stock market? But there's no pre-FOMC drift in the bond market. So what's going on?
Yeah, so thank you for this question. Can I share the slides and show you that why it happens? Yeah. Yeah, so here is actually, so in Luca and Monge, they also found that there's no pre-announcement drift in this fixed income market as mentioned by Dimitri. Actually, this is fully consistent with my model's prediction. Since in my model, the sign of the pre-announcement drift depends on whether the asset is risky or hedged. So if the asset is a hedge, the pre-announcement drift will be negative. And Campbell and his co-authors found that during the past 30 years, the nominal bond beta is time variant and our average is close to 0. So conditional on the bond is a risky asset, there is a positive drift on average. And if the bond is a hedge, then the average pre-announcement drift will be negative. And unconditionally, there's no pre-announcement drift in this fixed income market. And this implication is fully agreed with the Sislak and Pan that they do this VR exercise, and they find that for the bond market, the premium, for the bond market announcement days, the reduction in the common premium is offset by a decline in the hedging premium. That's why there's no pre-announcement drift in this fixed income market. And also, I take a look at the high frequency TY VIX that measures the uncertainty in the bond market. I only have the data for the past 7 years, and I find that on average, the uncertainty of the bond market also decreases before announcement. Yeah.
So let me ask a related follow-up question. So the FOMC puzzle has two pieces. One is the pre-announcement drift, and the other is the lack of drift at other times. So does your model also explain the lack of drift at other times?
When you say at other times, do you mean after?
Not around announcement periods, right? If 70% of the premium is earned on these 8 days, it means there's the premium on other days is close to zero. So does your model also explain that?
Yes, mechanism? Yeah. So yes, my model also is like can explain that, because as I showed you at the beginning, I studied the consumption-based asset pricing framework. So there are also the risk in other days, but it will be concentrated on this announcement. Since only one announcement happen, it will reveal the huge uncertainty. But on other days, there is also this like the movement of consumption and also the movement of this SDF. Yes, like for my paper, I can also explain that why the premium is pretty low on other days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question from Dimitri, sort of an earlier question. So order imbalance is mechanically correlated with returns even on days without information releases. For example, index addition days. Can you look at Kyle's Lambda or other proxies for informed trading rather than order imbalance?
Yeah, thank you for this question. So first, I agree that the order imbalance is it is correlated with the return. But like as I show in the figure, that correlation will be more like it will be more significant when there is uncertainty reduction before announcement. So I hope that can be one of the good indicator that there is informed trading. I fully agree that for that is not sufficient. And for Chaos Lambda and also other proxies, I did take a look, and I found that there's no, honestly, it is not significantly different from other days. And in the literature, people think that it's like because the liquidity traders may be time variant. So they argue that under that case, the Chaos Lambda is not a good measure for this informed trading. Yeah.
All right. So there were some small questions in the chat, but I think they were actually cleared up by the discussion in the chat, so I won't read them. So if anyone else has a question now, please feel free to unmute yourself and use your microphone.
Yeah, I would have a question. I see that you restrict yourself to certain classes of utility function. I'd be interested to know, would you be able to recover your drift, your positive drift, if you wouldn't have ambiguity aversion, or is it necessary?
Oh, yes. Thank you for the question. So for my paper, I only talk about the recursive preference, but I can extend it to other preferences such as ambiguity and also robust control, as long as the certain equivalence functional increases in the second order stochastic dominance. I can study this framework in a pretty general preference. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, in the chat, Francois Kokoma called your attention to another paper with risk-averse market makers. Actually, it's by Satan Danilova, 2016. Do you know about this? Are you familiar with that other paper?
Honestly,
okay,
I don't. Yeah.
If you're not, it's okay. Dimitri will send you the chat log after the talk, so then you can see what then you can see the site.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, I think then Christian will introduce our next speaker.